Whether you want to accept it or not, your time and place here is the result of a constantly changing and converging set of imperfections in a world where the multiplicity of things descends form process. In civilization especially, the intellectual capacity that gave Arabic numerals, and at the same time in history, the invention of certain forms of measurement, circumstance of time, and frame measured with, is never precursive to the fact you are as the result of that nature's momentums and exchange divergence and convergence. From what built railroads, to present day, before a race-related absolute could have ever simply been true by genetics or by as assumed measure of intelligence, which by any standard, have you noticed you remain the ones bound by a baser bias before what was called intelligent or by any measure able, relative to another measure, was able to be better. Your genetic purity is in your head, you are the product of that convergence in relativism as well, by your measure of the worst. What was it that in some bias as a person wasn't an expression of, nothing is general, and sentience knows more even when it doesn't know, even against you. Language to listen, as opposed to speak, made remembrance of it, the AM and the A. The A, not measures of what language and where knowing describes people, and we should only be the last to manifest the most ideological and dogmatic, before where, why, and that we come from. Had more immersive things for us to ask about. Survival of the fittest is not an worthy expression of the human beings and human presence here as description of what is able to describe our relationship with reality and nature. Given what our description of what that consciousness is as something not simplified in will, grasping, seeing, seeking, thinking, and suffering, bearing more description than what an impulse simply defines itself, discriminating on domain, if our ideas of people were mentally manifest by things descending from past formulated thought form, immediate to our awareness, but untruth in our tendency to let them take forefront before we stop and ask when sensed if it was indeed truth before so. Much of what was more operational on my own mind saw what it wanted to see. These intersections of mind solidify our mantras before so much form of thought stopped being your master. A word in itself does not possess all that could be described, but you would have made that as projective onto people as if you knew everything there was to know about them. The array of blue, purple, and green minos are products of a varying occurrence, nonchalant but truthful content in its suchness within these natures, as opposed to the grouper. Thus the normality of species and race be more the matter of that which simply was but all the same content. On the Galapagos Islands there are finches, who have undergone the evolutionary process that is speciation, which occurs when an otherwise convergent species is suddenly separated by an environmental shift, isolating one population from the other. Over time, the environment induces a compensation, and begins a divergence to the point where the generations become two unique species, to the point where the two are no longer capable of producing offspring. On truth and triviality, the human being since time immemorial has been in state of convergence and movement than what can ever be simply or finally anything other than our lineages, as whole, intersectional and relative. That which was the measure of worth, who possessed it apart from that which was merely of form. Quite frankly, if I say so myself, rather fine children we are witnessing emerge in continuity.